My sister was left at the altar, then tried to hijack my wedding and called me heartless for saying no. We planned every detail a year in advance, paid for it ourselves, kept it small, intimate, and full of love. But after her fiancé bailed, my sister wanted me to cancel everything to protect her feelings. When I refused, they called me selfish. Mom disowned me. Jessica cursed me. And I walked down the aisle with both of them missing. It should have ruined the day. Instead, it made it unforgettable because that's when I finally said I do to myself. When Jake proposed to me last Christmas, it felt like everything in my life was finally falling into place. The lights, the snow, the way he nervously held my hand, it was perfect. We'd been dating for years, growing stronger together through all kinds of ups and downs, and the moment he popped the question, I knew there was no one else I wanted to spend my life with. We originally thought about getting married in the summer, but a last-minute overseas assignment came up for Jake's job, and that threw a wrench into things. So instead of rushing, we decided to shift our plans to December, aiming for a beautiful winter wedding right in the heart of the holiday season. Everything would be festive, twinkling with lights, and full of warmth. Planning the wedding became our little project. We weren't going overboard with anything, no crazy over-the-top stuff, no enormous venue or elaborate themes. Just something genuine, something that felt like us. Around 50 guests, our closest friends and family, a short outdoor ceremony followed by a cozy meal. That's it. We booked a simple garden venue with some winter charm, lined up the caterer early, and even got great deals since we started planning almost a year ahead. We wanted everything locked in before the holiday chaos kicked in. Both of us work full-time and lead pretty modest lives, so we made a pact not to blow our savings on unnecessary fluff. Every little piece of this wedding was thoughtfully planned and paid for bit by bit. From the beginning, our families knew about the date. We talked about it during dinners and calls, and everyone seemed happy for us, or at least that's what we believed. My mom, Linda, had her moments of being overly opinionated, but that wasn't new. And my older sister, Jessica, well, our relationship had always been a bit complicated. We weren't close like some sisters are, but we weren't enemies either. Growing up, she was more of the stay-at-home type. The one who hung around with mom and the aunts, helping in the kitchen, gossiping about the neighbors. I was the opposite. I had my head in books, chasing scholarships and dreaming of college life far away. I left home at 18 and never really looked back, while Jessica stayed until she was 25, only moving out when she got married. That marriage didn't last. They split quietly after a couple years, no big drama. It was one of those slow fizzle situations. Since then, she'd been living with mom again, helping around the house and working part-time jobs, just getting by. Meanwhile, I was out there trying to build a life. And now I was finally at the point where things felt stable and happy, ready to step into the next chapter. At least, that's what I thought before things started to get messy. Not long after Jake and I announced our wedding plans, Jessica surprised everyone by revealing that she was getting married too. At first, I didn't think much of it. She'd only just started seeing this guy a few months earlier, and the whole thing felt a little sudden. I tried not to judge, but the timing felt off, like maybe she was rushing into it for the wrong reasons. A part of me quietly wondered if she was reacting to my engagement, trying to beat me to the altar, or maybe just not wanting to feel left behind. I didn't say anything right away, but when she told me about the date, I pulled her aside and gently asked if she was sure. Marriage isn't something I take lightly, and I figured maybe she needed someone to talk to make sure she wasn't diving headfirst into another mistake. She didn't take it well. Instead of talking, she got defensive, saying that not everyone has the luxury of long-term love and that some people just have to make do with what life gives them. It stung. I let it go, even though her words echoed in my head for days. Her wedding was meant to be small, very low-key, just a handful of guests at a little church ceremony. She told us the groom's family wouldn't be coming because they lived overseas and couldn't make it on short notice. From her side, it was just mom, dad, a few close friends, and me. The day of the wedding came, and we all got dressed up and waited at the church. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then another. Her phone rang and rang, but there was no answer from him. She tried texting, dad tried calling, but the groom never showed. Eventually, he sent a message saying he couldn't go through with it, that he wasn't sure and needed more time. That was it. No explanation, no face-to-face conversation. Just a text. Jessica sat there in her dress, stunned. She didn't cry. She just stared ahead like her mind couldn't process it yet. Mom hovered around her, trying to shield her from everyone's eyes, and I stood nearby, unsure if I should hug her or give her space. When she finally spoke, she asked to be alone with mom and her friends. That was it. No mention of me, even though I was standing right there. It hurt, more than I wanted to admit at the time, but I understood. I left without a word and cried in the car. I sent her a message a week later to check in, just a simple, "How are you holding up?" but she didn't respond. The text stayed unread for weeks. I didn't push it. I figured she needed time. Months passed. I ran into her at Mom's place and tried to act normal, asked her how she was doing, but she shut it down fast. "Why are you acting like I'm some pitiful girl left at the altar? I don't need a man to complete me," she snapped. I told her I was just checking in, nothing more. She didn't exactly give me the cold shoulder, but she wasn't warm either. Since then, things between us have been off. Still, when Jake and I started sending out the wedding invitations, I included her, hoping we could move past everything. A day later, she called. I picked up, expecting a congratulations or maybe a quick chat. Instead, she asked in a flat voice, "So, you're getting married at that outdoor garden venue?" I said yes. She replied with a dry "cool," then hung up. I stared at the screen, confused, unsure if I missed something. That confusion didn't last long. The very next day, Mom called, urging me to change the wedding plans. "It's too hard for your sister," she said. "It's too soon. She's still hurting." She wanted us to either tone it down or move the ceremony to a courthouse or small church, somewhere more modest, with fewer guests. I was stunned. We'd been planning this for nearly a year. Everyone knew the date. Everything was booked, paid for, and set in motion. Why was this suddenly a problem now? That question marked the beginning of a much deeper divide. After sending out the invitations, I honestly thought things would start feeling more real, exciting even. Instead, it felt like I'd stepped on a landmine. The day after Jessica's cold phone call, I got another call, this time from Mom. Her tone was calm at first, but I could hear that familiar edge creeping in. "Honey," she began, "have you thought about maybe scaling things down? A garden wedding so soon after what happened with your sister might be a bit much." I was confused. We had talked about the venue a dozen times before. She'd seen the Pinterest board, the sample decor, even helped me brainstorm flower ideas. Now out of nowhere, she was treating it like it was some over-the-top affair we sprung on her. I reminded her, kindly at first, that we had already paid for most of it. The venue, catering, floral arrangements, everything was locked in. We'd spent months carefully budgeting, and honestly, it was far from extravagant. Just a nice little celebration in a winter garden with good food and people we love. But she wouldn't let it go. She said it would be disrespectful to Jessica's feelings to have such a grand celebration so soon after she was left at the altar. Then came the part that really got under my skin. She suggested we just cancel the whole thing and push it to the following summer. Like it was that easy. Like we hadn't put time, money, and emotion into every single detail. I told her no, that postponing again wasn't an option. We'd already delayed the summer wedding once because of Jake's work trip. We had rearranged our entire schedule, made payments we couldn't get back, and committed to this date for a reason. Her response? "Well, if you could postpone it for Jake, why can't you do it for your sister if you really loved her?" That was the first time I felt genuinely angry. The guilt trip, the emotional manipulation, it was too much. I told her the wedding would go forward as planned and that I wasn't going to feel bad for celebrating something beautiful in my life. She didn't take it well. She hung up without another word. Later that night, I sat down with Jake and told him everything. He listened quietly, then said something that didn't sit right with me, even though I knew he meant well. "Maybe your sister's just overwhelmed," he said. "Seeing you happy when she feels so broken must be hard." I wanted to snap at him, but I bit my tongue. I knew he was trying to be empathetic, trying to understand both sides. But part of me felt like he was starting to lean toward their side, and that scared me. I didn't want to be the villain in my own wedding story. Still, that moment planted a tiny seed of doubt. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I should be more sensitive. But then I remembered something. We didn't plan our wedding out of spite. We didn't pick the date to hurt anyone. We chose it out of love, joy, and because it made sense for our lives. And now that everything was spiraling, I found myself standing at a crossroads between being the good daughter and protecting my happiness. That night marked the first serious rift in the family. Not a fight, not a disagreement, but a clear line drawn in the sand. A few days after the phone call with Mom, she invited Jake and me over for dinner. She said she just wanted to catch up, maybe serve some home-cooked meals before things got too busy with the wedding. I had a bad feeling in my gut, but Jake, ever the kind-hearted optimist, thought it would be rude to say no. Before we left, I pulled him aside and told him flat out, "If they bring up the wedding or try to guilt us into changing anything, don't say a word. Let me handle it." Jake nodded, but I could already tell he wasn't prepared for what was coming. When we arrived, Jessica wasn't there, which gave me a moment of relief. Dinner started off pleasant enough, small talk, some of Mom's best recipes, the usual reminiscing. But then she brought it up. She started talking about how she and Dad had a simple wedding at the courthouse, followed by a modest lunch with just the parents. She made it sound romantic, like sacrificing the celebration had brought them closer. Then she turned to Jake and said, "You know, you two have your whole lives ahead of you. Maybe keeping it simple would be a better start. Save the money for something meaningful." Jake, who always wants to be polite, nodded along. I knew he didn't agree, but he didn't want to be disrespectful. I jumped in before she could go further and reminded her, again, that our wedding was simple compared to most. We weren't throwing a lavish bash. We had cut costs wherever we could, and this was what made sense for us. She didn't seem to hear me. She doubled down, saying that our family had always been modest and humble, and it wasn't like us to make a spectacle. That's when I snapped. "Jessica's first wedding had nearly 100 guests," I said. "That sure wasn't intimate." Mom immediately shifted, saying that Dad had wanted it that way because it was the first family wedding. Then, as if on cue, she teared up and started talking about how much she missed him, how he would have loved to see both his daughters happily married. Jake reached out and hugged her, and I could see it happening. She was getting to him. I gave him a look, silently pleading with him not to fall for it. That's when Jessica walked in. She must have been waiting in the hallway or something, because her entrance was way too well timed. She walked over to Mom, all dramatic, put her arm around her and said, "Don't worry, Mom. At least some of us still care about your feelings." I stared at her, stunned. She didn't even try to hide the jab. My heart was pounding, but I tried to keep calm. "I haven't done anything to hurt either of you," I said. "All I've done is plan my wedding." That lit the fuse. Jessica went off, accusing me of being heartless, selfish, insensitive. She said I should have canceled everything the moment she got left at the altar, that it was disgusting to throw a celebration while she was still grieving. I defended myself, reminded her we made these plans long before she even met that guy. She didn't care. When she mocked me for spending so much on a one-day event, I finally lost it. "Yeah," I said. "It is just one day, but it's my day. And unlike some people, I plan to have it once in my life." That hit hard. I could see it in her face. I instantly regretted how harsh it sounded, but I couldn't take it back. For months I'd kept my mouth shut, letting them steamroll me with guilt and accusations. I was done. The fight exploded after that. Voices were raised, tears were shed, and Jake had to physically pull me out of the house before it escalated even further. As we walked to the car, I shouted over my shoulder that the wedding would happen exactly as planned, and if they didn't like it, they didn't have to come. My hands were shaking, my heart felt like it would burst. That night I sat in silence, too drained to cry. I knew I'd crossed the line, but I also knew they'd pushed me to it. I was tired of playing the villain in a story where all I ever did was try to be happy. That was the night everything officially broke. In the days that followed that explosive dinner, everything snowballed faster than I could have imagined. I started hearing whispers, family members reaching out with just checking in texts that didn't feel so innocent, a few awkward phone calls that danced around the subject of the fight. That's when I realized Jessica had already started spinning the story. And she wasn't holding back. She told people I had humiliated her, mocked her for being abandoned, and flaunted my happiness in her face like it was some kind of trophy. None of it was true, but the damage was done. People love drama more than truth, and Jessica knew exactly how to play the victim. To make matters worse, Mom had clearly taken her side. I tried calling my godmother, Aunt Jackie, just to talk, to make sure someone still had my back. Thankfully she did. She told me Jessica had been making the rounds, telling everyone I was cold, arrogant, and too obsessed with myself to care about anyone else. Aunt Jackie said the family was torn. Some believed Jessica, some didn't want to get involved, but almost everyone had heard something. I was mortified. When I told Jake, he sighed and said, "I'm not getting into your family drama. We're sticking with the plan, and that's final." That moment gave me a second wind. I'd been wavering, questioning everything, but his words grounded me again. If we backed down now, it would be like admitting we were the villains they made us out to be. But then the real gut punch came. Jessica left me a voicemail, long, bitter, and full of venom. She called me a spoiled brat. Said I'd always been selfish. Said she hoped Jake would leave me at the altar the same way she was left, so I could finally understand her pain. Hearing those words from my own sister, just days before my wedding, it crushed me. I'd been trying so hard to hold it all together, but that voicemail broke something in me. And then, as if that weren't enough, Mom emailed me. It wasn't a message full of guilt or reflection, it was cold. She told me I had betrayed the family, that I was heartless, and that she was disowning me. She said she didn't want to see me again. I read it twice, just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. The same woman who raised me, who used to read me bedtime stories and pack my lunch, had cut me out because I refused to cancel my wedding. I spent that entire night sitting by the window, numb. The week before your wedding is supposed to be full of excitement and joy, maybe some nerves, but not this. Not family turning their backs on you. Not curses and cold goodbyes. I felt like I was standing on an island, surrounded by people who were supposed to love me but couldn't be happy unless I was as miserable as they were. And still, I couldn't cry. I was too tired, too shocked, too drained to feel anything but this hollow ache in my chest. That was the moment I finally understood what it meant to grieve people who are still alive. Just when I thought the damage was beyond repair, something shifted, quietly, unexpectedly. 2 days before the wedding, I got a call from Mom. At first, I didn't even want to pick up. I stared at the screen for a full minute, heart pounding, expecting another demand or some fresh accusation. But something about the way she said, "Hi," caught me off guard. Her voice wasn't sharp. It was tired. Soft. She asked if we could meet, just the two of us, for coffee. I hesitated. Every part of me wanted to say no, to protect the tiny bit of peace I'd managed to hold on to. But curiosity and a flicker of hope won out. We met at a small cafe on the edge of town, far enough away from all the family chaos. She looked smaller than I remembered, older, worn out. She didn't say much at first. Just handed me an envelope with my name on it in Jessica's handwriting. I opened it cautiously, bracing myself for more guilt, more blame. But it wasn't that. The letter was raw. Honest. Jessica wrote that she'd been drowning in her own grief and in the process took it out on me. She admitted she was jealous of my engagement, of the happiness she couldn't seem to find. She said she regretted lashing out and wished she could undo the damage. She couldn't bring herself to come to the wedding, not yet, but she wanted me to know she was sorry. She wished me love, peace, and joy, even if she couldn't be there to see it. I didn't know what to say. I just stared at the letter, my eyes stinging. Mom sat quietly while I read, then reached across the table and took my hand. She apologized too. She admitted she'd let her emotions cloud her judgment. Said she'd been trying to protect Jessica but ended up hurting me in the process. She told me she loved me and that she was ashamed for asking me to cancel something so meaningful. She said she missed Dad and let her grief turn into fear. Fear of losing Jessica completely, fear of more heartbreak. "I can't change what I said," she whispered, "but I want to be there for you now if you let me." I sat there in silence for a long time. I thought about all the pain, all the yelling, all the things that were said and couldn't be unsaid. But I also thought about the girl inside me who still wanted her mom at her wedding, who still hoped her sister didn't really hate her. Jake had told me the night before, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it just means not letting the pain drive the car. He was right. So I told Mom she could come. I said she was welcome as long as she respected our plans and didn't bring up the past again, not on the day I was starting my future. She nodded, her eyes wet, and thanked me. I didn't expect it, but it felt good. Not perfect. Not healed. But better. Jessica didn't want to come, and that was okay. She texted me later that night to say thank you for understanding. She wasn't ready, but she was rooting for me. And that was enough. I went to bed that night feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks, peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because I chose to let go of what I couldn't control. The wedding was still on, exactly as we planned, and this time it would carry something even more powerful than celebration. Closure, grace, and the start of something new. The morning of our wedding arrived crisp and cold, a perfect December day with just enough sunlight breaking through the clouds to warm the edges of the air. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, barely recognizing the calmness in my own reflection. After everything we'd been through, I had expected to feel anxious or shaken. But instead, there was this strange stillness in me, like all the storms had passed, and I was finally standing in the quiet afterward. The venue looked like something out of a dream. Our little winter garden had been transformed with white and gold decor, twinkling lights strung across the bare trees, and soft blooms in deep reds and icy blues that added warmth to the chill in the air. Everything was exactly how we imagined it, intimate, magical, and filled with the kind of beauty that didn't need to scream for attention. About 70 people showed up. Our closest friends, cousins, co-workers, the ones who had stayed out of the drama and just wanted to celebrate with us. As I walked down the aisle and locked eyes with Jake, I swear the rest of the world disappeared. His face lit up in a way I'll never forget. Not just love, but relief, joy, and pride. Our vows were heartfelt and a little shaky, full of emotion we didn't bother hiding. There wasn't a dry eye in the front rows. Even Jake, usually composed to the point of stoic, choked up halfway through his promise to never stop making me laugh. Then during the reception, something happened I hadn't planned for. Mom stood up and took the mic. My stomach dropped for a split second, but the moment she started speaking, I knew it was different this time. She didn't try to justify anything or make it about herself. She simply said she was sorry for the pressure, the hurt, and the times she forgot how to be my mom when I needed her most. She shared a sweet story about me as a kid, one that made everyone laugh, and ended by saying how proud Dad would have been to see me like this, strong, graceful, and building a life on my own terms. We hugged after that. No words, just a real hug. One of those rare ones that says more than any apology ever could. Later, during one of the dances, she pulled me aside and whispered, "I meant every word." I nodded. I knew she did. We didn't need to talk it to death. That moment was enough. Though Jessica wasn't there in person, her presence still found a way to slip into the day. A florist handed me a bouquet that arrived with a note. It was from her. Simple but powerful. "For your new beginning. I'm proud of you." I placed it near the framed photo of Dad on our memory table, and for a second I felt the sting of what could have been, but also the warmth of what was finally beginning to heal. Dinner was everything we hoped for, warm, comforting, full of laughter and clinking glasses. The apple cider was a hit, and so were the little dessert cups Jake insisted we splurge on. The whole evening felt like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. And when we released paper lanterns into the sky, each one carrying a silent wish or a silent goodbye, I finally let go of all the anger, the guilt, and the ache I'd been holding onto for months. Watching them float upward, I felt light again. Looking back, the wedding wasn't just about saying I do to the man I love. It was about choosing joy in the face of resistance. About drawing boundaries without closing doors. About forgiveness, not the easy kind, but the kind that leaves scars and still chooses to heal anyway. We left for our honeymoon the next morning, hearts full, bags packed, and minds finally at peace. As we boarded the plane, Jake squeezed my hand and smiled. We did it. And I smiled back, not just because we got married, but because we did it on our terms with our love intact and our hope renewed. The wounds were real, the pain undeniable, but so was the healing. And in the end, that made all the difference.